Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Tryon. Thank you so much for joining me this Wednesday afternoon. If you're in North America, it's a bit later if you're joining from other parts of the world. So we'll give people a few minutes to get logged in here, but I wanted to let you know we are making our own Christmas stockings today, and they are so, look, isn't that so cute with the pom-poms? And they're two-sided, so you get a design on one side and a design on the other side. Right? And they sew together so fast that literally you could make, a whole family's worth of stockings in an hour or two. They're really, really simple to put together. I'm going to show you how to do the lining so that you're not having, so that when you see inside, it's all nicely lined and they'll last year after year. I also love this idea for, let's say, putting a wine bottle in, using it as wrapping paper, basically. When you're going to someone's house this season, you're delivering them not only a gift, but something that they can help decorate their home with, as years to come. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Are we getting some people on there?
Allie says hi, and
hi,
Christine, and
Kim. Hi, you
Kim.
guys. Oh, that's so great. I've got
Isabel.
Mike. Isabel, that's great. Tell me where you're joining in from tonight. I'm dying to know where everyone is.
North Carolina, someone from Barrie.
Oh, that's good.
And California. So far.
Nice. We're heading to California next week. I'm going to be going to the Crafters Companion head office, so I'm excited to see everybody there. So let's get started. I've got Mike, my husband, who has rushed home from school today to be behind the camera, so thank you for doing that for all of our sake. Okay, so I'm sewing up these stockings, and what I'm doing here applies to any stocking. So if you just have fabric around the house and you don't have one of these stocking kits, like I'm sewing off of these panels, you can easily make your own with just scrap fabric that you have around, or take one of the shirts, let's say, that your husband doesn't wear anymore because it doesn't fit anymore.
Whoa, this is getting serious.
What I'm saying is, I bet you have scrap fabric. He's unzipping his sweater.
It's hot in here.
You're good.
People are saying nice to meet you, which is nice.
I know, Mike, you're fine. What I'm saying is, I bet you have scrap fabric around your house that you could use if you were inspired to make your own stocking, because they're really simple to put together. But I'm going to use this kit, which if you're interested in, can find on hsn.com. And it comes with you can make 2 stockings out of one kit. So, or if you don't want it to be double-sided, like let's say you wanted to just put a scrap of fabric on the back, like a neutral on the back, then you could actually make 4 stockings and just always hang them this way. So just a way to sort of stretch it a bit further. And it also comes, well, you buy it separately, but the Advent Calendar kit, that's what I sewed up last week if you missed it. These are the Advent Calendars. You can see I've been making them all week long, because even though it's past December 1st, I am going to give lots of these out as gifts, and we sewed them up as a fundraiser, and so I was helping people finish theirs. So such a great coordinating fabric, and kind of not your traditional Christmas colors, and I like that. Okay, so when you get it home, it's going to come like this, except for you're going to get 4, and you're going to get the lining fabric, and then you're going to get this batting. And this is what you're putting on the inside. This is essentially what would go in the middle of a quilt.
That comes in the kit?
It all comes in the kit. Everything you need. You just need your basic sewing supplies. And even if you didn't have a sewing machine, it's not so big that you couldn't hand sew it. But if you've got, a sewing machine somewhere in your basement or in your closet, dig it out, even if it's an old one. I'd say an old machine is better than no machine. Or I bet you your mother-in-law has one, or your sister, or somebody you can borrow one from. It's really, really fun. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is not slice your finger open on your sharp scissors, which is, how do I do this like every single time? If it's not the glue gun, it's the scissors.
Accident prone.
I know. It's because I operate a mile a minute. I was listening to a podcast earlier that said, go slow to go fast. I should, because inevitably I'm, you know what I mean? Because then I end up doing things 2 or 3 times because I've rushed through them, and you know what I mean? All right, but you don't want to rush through the cutting of this.
So we're cutting with scissors and not the rotary?
Well, I'm cutting with scissors. Normally when you're doing projects where you have to, like, you know, be precise, you would want to cut with fabric scissors. Now, I've got the rotary here, and that would make very quick work of it. Like, you can. I'll show you. Everybody sort of gets how to cut with scissors. But you, typically when you're cutting with a rotary cutter, you want to be going up against a ruler. But you could do it this way too. Just make sure, so you're not getting quite as precise, but it's fine. Honestly, it's going to be hidden in the seams anyway.
You should go a little slower, go faster.
All right, you're gonna quote this to me all night long. This is great.
One time.
Right. Okay. I know what our future holds. Every time I'm rushing now, he's gonna be like, Jen, I once heard a very wise crafter say. And you know what I should be doing here? I should actually, I'll do this on the next one, is put my liner fabric underneath this, because I can totally cut more than one layer at a time. I know people are probably cringing that I'm not using the scissors here, but it's fine. So.
No one cares so far.
Okay, good. So I'm going to take the lining fabric and fold it over, because I need two sides of the liner also. So when I'm cutting this side out, let's get rid of this tail. When I'm cutting this side out,
try using that one of these times.
The rotary cutter?
Yeah.
It looks fun?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Even for you, huh? It's good. It's inspiring.
Well, Mitsiana's excited. She made it.
Oh, good. Hi, Mitsiana. I'm glad you're here. And hey, if you are so inclined, I'd love it if you would share this video with your crafty friends, because that really does help me do more of these videos, the more people that watch. So if you like tuning in, please share the video. Because look, we're cutting out 3 at a time here.
Ooh.
Yeah, that just makes quicker work of it. Ah! Look, I'm going... Okay, go slower, Jen. Look, I've gone right into the seam. But that's what's great about this panel. So this is your seam allowance right here. And I've kind of cut into it, but I'm just going to get back on track here. It's alright. If you make a mistake, you're just going to leave that part hidden in your seam anyway. Now, when you're doing like home decor or anything like that, quilting for sure, you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam. But sometimes things will call for 1/2 inch seam. If you're a real beginner and you want to leave yourself like a little more like along the edge, go ahead. You don't have to go right up to this blue. If you feel like, you know, you need a little extra. So I have to push a little bit harder down, obviously, because I'm going through more layers. But it's still much faster than if I were to try to cut all 3 of these at once. And, you know, on straightaways, use a ruler, and, you know, it's even more helpful. You get a much crisper, cleaner cut whenever you use a ruler. Okay. And then the other thing that you're going to want to cut too, just store these there for clean up in 2018, is you're going to want to cut 2, same thing, use the what you've cut already as a guide. And this I will use the scissors for.
So you don't pin it or anything? You just...
Nah, you could. But honestly, it's just an extra step. And the thing about quilt batting is it holds, like I can lift this up and it's really not going to fall off. The quilt batting really grabs onto the fabric. That's all that's even on this fabric wall back there, is just quilt batting. And then I hang up the blocks that I'm working on, because the quilt batting really does cling to it. So, nah, I think pinning in this case is just an extra step that you don't really have to do. Especially for the cutting. Now, when you're sewing, you know, pinning is always a good idea. I'm not going to do it, but it's always a good idea. But here's the thing. Once you get sewing and you get a bit of confidence, you don't always have to pin. But, you know, when you're doing something a little more difficult or a little more intricate, yeah, a pin is going to hold it in place and make sure your seams line up a little bit better. Oops. But this project, are you looking at me and not that? This project, it really is easy to do. All right, so in the end, you're left with your front, your back. I like using kind of this one as the front. I think this side's my preferable side. Which side do you guys like better? The left or the right? And then you've got 2 for your liner. Okay? And then you've got 2 of your batting. So no matter what kind of stocking you're making, this is what you're going to want. You could, if you don't have quilt batting, just use the fabric. It's just going to, and I did that with one of them over here. It's just going to be like a little flimsier. It's not going to stand quite as, okay, so can you see the difference when I'm pushing down on this one versus this one?
Yeah.
This one has the quilt batting and this one doesn't. So they still look the same. They're still going to function the same. It's just that this one is like cotton on cotton, and this one's much sturdier, more like a real stocking would, a traditional stocking would be. So if you're making it out of scrap fabric and you don't have quilt batting, you can still make one or test it out without the batting.
People are preferring that as the front.
Yeah, I like this as the front too. I just, I like it better. I like that one, but. All right, so the batting and the front are going to go together. And this I'm going to consider as like one piece. And then the back and the batting are going to go together. And I'm going to consider this one piece. Now here is where I'll put a couple pins. Because, like, for example, see this? I don't want this happening because that's my seam allowance. I need these two to literally act like one piece, as though they're not cut from separate. So I'll take a bit of time to make sure things are lining up. And once they are lined up and I don't see that seam allowance anywhere, I know I'll put a couple pins. And that way it's going to stay sandwiched.
Someone's asking if you can buy the patterns for those stuffies you made a little while ago.
Oh, that rabbit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did make that rabbit. There's no, I can post a link to a pattern if you guys are interested in it. I cut that with my Cricut Maker. So it was a free pattern that they were offering. And so that's how I cut that out. So if you have a Cricut and you cut fabric with that, I wanted to test out cutting fabric with that, so that's what I did that's how I cut that out.
Janome saying no pinning, rebel.
You know me. Always living on the edge. Well, I did put a couple pins. Okay, so here's what's funny about sewing is that oftentimes you have to reverse engineer things. Unlike paper crafts or scrapbooking where you build your foundation and then you do lots of the decorating and the frilly stuff at the end, sewing, oftentimes you need to do it at the beginning so that you can hide seams and you can, like a finished product is often, reversed. I don't think that makes total sense the way I'm saying it, but maybe if I tell you what I mean. So even though I'm just dealing with a totally unsewn piece, I'm going to put here some of the decorative edging, some of the decorative stitches that I want to be on the stocking at the end. I'm going to do that now. And the reason I'm going to do that now is because at some point I'm going to be putting the liner in place and I want to hide all of that back inside the stocking so it looks nice and crisp and clean. So before I get too far into sewing the sock together, I'm going to put the decorative stitches in. And you can see here, Mike, if you could come in, this machine has like, a few little, snowflakes and stars and a couple things I think are going to look cute, sort of wintry. So that's what's nice about having, if you come around, I'm going to choose. What should I choose, you guys?
Around this way?
Yeah, come around. Maybe some of number 63 here, like some of the stars. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to toggle on up. And choose number 63. And the machine is telling me to use presser foot F, which is sort of what I like about having a computerized machine, is that it's gonna, automatically choose the optimal stitch length and width and tell me what presser foot to use. So along some of the, see how there's lots of free space here on these lines? And we've got like this row of stars here. I'm going to put a row just along the edge. And this is just going to give it a little more personalized, you know, flair. Plus, it allows you to make use of all of these features that these sewing machines have that you might think like, well, when am I going to use that? This is when you would use it. Now, if you don't have, you know, any of these decorative stitches on your machine, that's fine. You can still do a little extra decorating.
Let's see. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can still do a little extra. Like you could just, let's just go right back.
Is that supposed to be straight?
All right.
I'm sorry.
So let's say you don't have the decorative stitches. Instead, what you could do, if you just have like an old mechanical machine or, you know, just a regular beginner machine, just do some quilting, which is just straight stitching. See if you just straight stitch along the edge here. It gives it a little, the lighting is so bad here. Let me see this. So it gives it just like a little bit of puff. It looks a little more quilted because we've got that, we're sewing it onto the batting. See what I mean? And then you're going to get like, you know, let's say I did that every second one, then it just gives it that sort of nice look. Oh, you're asking, has the Threaders design team been chosen yet? We have a list of people that are going to be contacted very soon. I appreciate your patience. We will be contacting people. So hang in there with us. So see, you don't need like all of the fancy stitches even, you know, to add a little bit of extra. I actually kind of like that. Just I know a lot of people have been asking, am I only doing sewing lives from now on? The answer is no. I'm going to totally be mixing it up. Next week sometime, I'm going to do a paper crafting live. I am totally wanting to dig into Sheena's line, the Mulberry Street, like with the houses and the lampposts. I'm going to totally do something next week with that. So if you have been patiently waiting for the paper crafting lives, they're coming back. Honestly, I should post a picture of my calendar, and then you would be like, huh, how's she supposed to fit that in? It is helpful, I think, to be doing some of these lives at this time slot. I know lots of people are at work or maybe have to not watch live. But I think more regularly, if we can do it in the afternoon, that'll help too. Okay, so I just did one more row of those little stars, and my phone's beeping. And then I'm going to just do, let's say, another just row of plain stitches.
So this is all just decorative, right?
This is all just decorative. This is having no impact on how to actually physically put together the stocking. It's just that now's the time to do it. Because if I were to try to do any of this decorative stitching later on, it would run through the liner or it would close the stocking shut. So you have to think ahead a little bit with sewing projects and make sure that you've got all your decorating that you want on the outside done so that you can hide all those seams and threads in the middle of the project. Okay, so you can see I did a little bit of, you know, decorating back and forth here. I did one a bit earlier just to test it out. And look at this when you go, like, let's say, and do like a blanket stitch or some of these heirloom stitches all around the heel.
Well, that looks nice.
Yeah, and around the toe, and then even around the tree. You know, have a bit of fun with it and use your sewing machine to, you know, more of its fullest potential. even if your sewing machine only has a straight, or you just wanted to do, most sewing machines will have a zigzag stitch, or a scallop stitch. You could do that along here too. So have some fun with it. Have some fun with it. Okay, so once you've got the decorative stitching done, we're going to be working right sides together. Almost always with sewing, I mean, I can't think of a time when you wouldn't, but it's always right sides together. And patterns will say right sides together. And that means that the right side of the fabric, like the good side, the right side, goes together with the other right side. So when you see that on a pattern where it says right sides together, that's what that means. So we're basically making them kiss. And I'm going to take out some of these pins here, just so I'm not trying to get them out after when I'm reversing it. And if you want, you can pin this together now so that your seams stay nice and straight. You don't need to pin like every single place, but a couple is a good idea. It'll keep it, and so see, it's basically all lined up together. And now I'm going to sew around the entire sock, but not the top, obviously. You're wondering why?
No.
You're looking at me like, why wouldn't you sew around the top? Well, because then it would sew shut. Right?
I knew.
Right. You looked at me like, are you sure? Admit it.
No, that's not true.
All right. This is where you're going to want to make sure you're also, okay, I can change my pressure foot back to the regular. And now this could also be where, let's say you use a quarter, I'm going to use the 1/4 inch. So this right here is a 1/4 inch seam, or a 1/4 inch presser foot. It's got this, hi Donna, I know Carlotta's dying for paper crafting. Lots of people are, don't worry, this week we're going to get back to it. This little 1/4 inch foot, make sure that the fabric, see, can't get past. So you just line it up, and then that way the needle's going to go in and it's going to give you a perfect 1/4 inch wherever you sew. So I'm going to use that, and then that way I know around my whole project my seam is going to be the same. So I'm going forward a couple stitches and then back a couple stitches, and that just locks it in. And I could slow down a little bit. This machine has like this cruise control, the speed adjustment. And so it doesn't matter how hard I push on the pedal, if I turn it down, it's only going that speed. And my foot is all the way on the gas here. Now if I turn it up, but really I don't need it to go that fast. That's when mistakes often happen. So I'll just go to like a reasonable, gotta get it done, yet also not screw it up speed. That's what this speed's called.
Carlotta says she's patient, so.
Thank you. I'm gonna see if my daughter has a basketball game on Friday night. However, you longtime watchers will remember my sister Sarah. She might be coming over on Friday night, and if she is later on, I might try to convince her to do a live with me, and then we'll make that. But it'll be impromptu. I'm not promising anything, but so I hope you guys will tune in, or at least if you haven't already liked this Facebook page, please do, and then you'll get notified when we're going live for stuff like this. And there's no bigger compliment than if you share the video. That really helps me do more of these kinds of things. Whoops. I cut it before I backstitched.
Even I knew that.
Thank you. So that's okay. I'm just going to backstitch and then cut it again.
Darn.
What, darn? Like you wanted me to mess it
No.
up? All right.
I was wondering how you're going to fix it. And it was easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only sewing. It's not like we're sewing up a heart patient here. It's just a stocking. So you can see by using the 1/4 inch foot what a good seam allowance I get there. Hi, Patty. All right. So I'm going to turn this right side out.
Will Sarah have the baby?
Did Sarah have the baby?
No, will she have the baby?
Oh, yeah. Well, the baby goes where Sarah goes. So if she's here on Friday, little Harrison will have to make an appearance. And now that I've publicly said this, maybe she'll be forced to help me out again. All right, so there we go. Sewed it all the way around. Make sure you get all the points out. So just run your fingers right on through.
Diane says she doesn't accept phone calls when you're on.
Oh, that's so sweet. Me either. Although, I do have my phone here because this is exactly when the kids' school will call and say, you know. Okay.
Oh.
So now, we've got, basically, it looks like we're almost done. This is how fast these come together, okay? But we're going to do the liner next. So
that goes inside?
This goes inside, but I'm going to show you how to attach it so that you get this perfect, like, how did she sew that in there liner. See what I mean? It's easy. It's difficult to conceptualize, but once you know, you can do this for anything. So, again, right sides together. And it's nice to have like the extension table here. Some of the machines now come, if you get a quilting option with your machine, sometimes it'll have this nice big extension table. And that just, it's nice. It's just nice. You don't need it. You don't need it, but it's just nice. It's like having cruise control or something in your car, or like a wider butt seat. It's just nice, more comfortable.
You can order a wider butt seat?
Yeah, I got one for you. For Christmas. Just kidding. Okay, before I get divorced here, you're going to sew all the way around the liner. However, I'm going to leave the toe open. Now, the actual instructions for this that come with the kit will actually tell you to leave the top open, which is fine. You could do that too, and then just top stitch it down. However, if you're just starting, I'm going to recommend that you leave the toe open, because that part's going to get shoved inside the sock and no one's ever going to see that part. Like, it's not like you're going to take the lining out of the stocking ever. So that's just my little beginner tip is, so couple stitches forward, couple stitches back. I'm staying with the 1/4 inch foot here.
Thank you, Claudia.
Aw, is she coming to your defense?
Yep.
I love you.
Yeah.
All right, I put those pins there to remind me when to stop, because you have no idea how many times, you just get on a roll and you just sew right on through. So I'm coming up to the pin here. I'm not going to run over it, and I am going to back stitch just because I don't want anything to unravel. And then I'm just going to pick it up on the other side of that pin. A few forward and then back. We're on a straightaway here. All right. Take your pins out. So now I've sewn around, not the top either, obviously, and I've left this hole in the boot, which is sort of like, okay. So now here is how you get this done. Remember how I talked about right sides together? You can go over there if you want.
Sure.
Remember how I talked about right sides together? So we need to sew this together again, and the right sides together actually means shoving, like shoving this into this. And that's right sides together. And then,
I don't think I would have thought of that.
I know, it's the kind of thing it's hard to deconstruct when you see it, but now that you know this tip, it's not that hard to do. So get it in there all the way. And make sure your seams line up, that you haven't gotten too twisted. Because if your seams line up, then everything's going to be facing properly.
You don't need to iron or anything?
Well, not really at this point. We are going to iron it at the end. Press it.
Because I thought sewing was 70% ironing.
Very good, Mike. In many projects, it is. In fact, some people, after they do any sort of stitching, like press it to lock in the stitches. I'm just not that particular. And for this is a very easy project to put together. There's not a lot of different steps. So now that that's in there, and the seams are lined up, see what I mean by lining up your seam? That seam and this seam. Make those kiss. And then that way, you know when we eventually do put it right sides together, everything is lining up. And I am going to pause just for a second here because now, in the instructions, it doesn't have this tip. Same within the advent calendar, but just from sewing them up, I want to give you this tip. And so if you're making a stocking at home, same thing. You might, most likely, will want these to hang, which means it needs to have something there that you can hang from. So this is the point of the project where you would do that. So I'm just going to, while that's pinned, I'm just going to pause for a minute and make a little hook because, let's face it, stockings hang. So I'm not sure why that wasn't in the instructions, but hey, it's all right. We can improvise.
Colleen thinks I should maybe do some of the sewing at some one of these days.
Oh, okay.
No.
Why don't you make the hang?
No, thank you.
Why not?
And someone wants to know about the iron.
Oh, okay. So this is my new iron, and it's cordless, as you can see. It's a good little iron. You have to put it back on. It's a Panasonic, and I got it at HSN when I was there. Woo. You have to put it back on the base every so often, or it'll start to lose heat because obviously the electricity keeps it hot and it doesn't have a cord. So when you're basically finished making your press or whatever, that's hot. Whatever it is you're doing, put it back on the base, and then it'll stay hot. So you can see what I did here, and this is where Mike is right. Sewing is 70% ironing. Is I've just pressed this scrap of material in like this and then folded it on top, and then that way I've got two clean edges, and I'm just going to sew down one edge. Now I could do it where I turn this inside out so I'm not seeing any stitching at all, but I'm not that bothered by it, so I'm just going to do it quickly here.
Someone wants to know what you're using as an ironing board. So
the little ironing pad I'm using is actually a traveling cutting mat from Omnigrid. I'll show it to you.
And Kathy likes her Panasonic too.
Oh, she has one too? That's good. What color did you get? There's a bunch of different colors. I got blue, but I think there was silver. Maybe there was red, I want to say. This is this cutting mat. I love this thing. So it's from Omnigrid. Oops. And this is what I always bring up to the living room, right, Mike?
Yep.
Like when we're watching TV and I'm like cutting things out on the floor.
It's in the car, it's everywhere.
I know. And I even cut it one time thinking, like I obviously cut on the wrong side. I don't know, I thought it was on the cut. So this side's the ironing board and this side's a rotary cutting mat, the self-healing mat. So yeah, it's great so that you don't have to have the whole ironing board set up and you can bring it places with you.
Silver and blue.
Oh yeah. Oh, she got two?
Maybe it's kind of dual.
Oh. Cool. Yeah, there was a silver. All right. So basically that little strip there that I sewed, I'm just going to fold it in half. I'm going to put it down ways, take that pin out, right on my seam, facing down. And now this feels like, why is it facing down when you're going to want a tag that sticks up? Because when we turn this right side out, then it'll be facing the right way. So it'll all become clear once we do the turnaround. I'm going to pin that in there. So when I sew around the edge, which is what I'm going to do right now, it's going to be sewn in. All right, so see how I can remove that bigger table and expose the free arm? And this is great if you have like a small project like this that you want to put right around.
Is it going to fit?
Well, it might fit. Maybe it's a bit tight. But basically, if you're doing the sleeve and you want to just rotate something like that, you can. I feel like it's a bit tight, so I'm just going to freehand it.
Rebel.
Rebel. So if you want these to line up for sure. Just do a little extra pinning. And you want to pin, I'm going to take the 1/4 inch foot off, even though I'm still going to try to aim for a 1/4 inch. It's just going to make it, because this is a little trickier. I'm going to actually use the side of my presser foot as the guide here instead. And basically I'm just going to sew, go back a little bit, lock it in, go forward. And I'm just kind of, see how I'm just sort of rotating it, and I'm going to sew all the way around. I don't want one side to get too far down. Don't run over your pins. And now I'm coming up to the hump where I've got the tag and the 2 seams. So I could go a little slower over here. You can see the machine can take it. Taking out the pins as I go.
Oh, some of them Sudbury.
Yay! Who's that?
Linda.
Hi, Linda. We have lots of family in Sudbury. I go there often. In fact, Mike, my husband, who's doing the camera work, is from Timmins. Okay, back stitching. And now you can see I've sewn this entire thing shut. So now what am I going to do?
You're going to pull everything out.
Yeah, but how? I just sewed this shut.
You got the hole somewhere.
Go ahead. All right, so that's why, very good, we left that hole in the toe. Because this is the big reveal. We're going to see how we did. See, there's the tag. All perfectly seamed in because we did that. And now...
Well, Linda wants to know where you are.
Where I am? I am just outside, I'm in Toronto. Yeah, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So if you haven't left me a note where you are from, do so. I love knowing where everyone's tuning in from. And now you can just sew this part, the boot of the toe, shut. Doesn't have to be perfect and no one's ever going to see in there. But you're going to want to close it just so that none of your candies and treats and stuff fall through.
Oh yeah, that would be terrible.
we don't want to lose one. All right, and then you want to shove this right in. And that's how you get the liner in almost anything.
Teresa's from Long Island, New York.
All right. So, you can see we're sort of in, it's kind of looking a little like raggedy at this point. There's threads to trim. See how this is sort of kind of, you know what I mean? This is where the ironing comes into play. And so you can see it here, but like look at the difference once I get a hot iron to it. When I iron those seams, basically iron it into submission. Let the steam just get on it, push down, like really press it.
Kathy likes to tip about the toe instead of the top.
Yeah, it's better because if something goes wrong, like, and you have to like stitch around the top, it's gonna show. So I like the toe better too.
Working together pretty quick.
Yeah, these are fast. Now I am gonna do one more step though. Where's my little snips? All right, trim off any little threads that you've got, because inevitably there's always some. And look at how nice that quilting is once it's done. It really does make a difference, and it's hard to see on camera. Mm-hmm. But it just gives it a little bit more texture, looks a little more handmade, a little less, you know, because there's some extra, it's just an extra touch. So I'd encourage you to do that. and do it more. Do it all on this side too. Go around the heel and the toe. There's lots of places that you can do it on this. Now, the last step I'm going to suggest, once you've cleaned it up a little, is to top stitch. And top stitch is essentially just stitching right around the top or the edge of a collar, or the edge, like, and we're going to do it here. And that's to prevent this. Over time, this will roll, or it'll kind of, you know what I mean? If you top stitch and put a layer or just one row of stitching all around, that's just going to keep it nice and flat and neat. And now there is a top stitching foot, which I hardly ever use, but I'm going to try it today. So this is the top stitching foot, and it's like the 1/4 inch foot where it has that guide. And I'm going to put it on, I'm just going to move my needle over. So if you're watching right here where the needle is, if you guys have just joined in, I'm just finishing up a Christmas stocking here. So see how that just moved the needle over? Oh. See, I'm putting the needle over more. And now this foot on my machine, I'm going to go right in super, super close. See that? There's a little guide there right on that. So that's not going to allow me to go any further. I'm just reading Linda's question. Does the cordless iron stay hot and have lots of steam? It has tons of steam, and it does stay hot, but you've got to keep putting it back on the base. Otherwise, at some point, it does start to lose a little bit of heat because there's no electricity, obviously. So yeah, there is tons of steam. I can show it to you after. So you can see I'm top stitching all the way around. Don't be afraid of the big bulky seams either. Just go a little bit slower. Oh, I got another thread there I need to snip. So now, be careful when you come to the tag here that I don't sew it to the stocking or something like that. I'm just going to let it go right on over. And if I'm having trouble, lift up the presser foot and let it get right on underneath there.
A lot of fabric.
It can take it. All right, so I've met my first bit of stitching in a back stitch.
Is the seam allowance of the top stitching foot smaller?
It's much smaller. Yes, look. See how it's... Let me see. Do you see how it goes right to the edge? So that's what that top stitching foot will allow you to do. Get right to the edge. The 1/4 inch foot would have gotten me a 1/4 inch down, which would have been fine too. But I wanted to try out that, like, see how the top stitching's like literally right at the top. Sorry, the light is... Can you see it there? It gets it right to the top. So that's just something to watch out for if your machine has a top stitching foot, then why not use it? But I'll warn you, make sure you push your needle over more to the left. Otherwise, it'll crash right down on your thing. Break your needle. I've done that 1,000 times. All right. Trim off a few little hairy bits. Aren't these the cutest little snips? They kind of operate like tweezers. You don't even have to put your big fingers in them, which I like. All right. That's it. I'm going to give it another
press.
Yes, sir. And I'll show you the steam. See there? Can you see that?
Yeah.
There's lots of steam. It has a steam button too, or you can turn the steam off. And like I said, if something's not behaving and something feels a little lumpy, iron it. That'll help. It always does. Okay. So, one last thing before I go that I think is going to look super cute on this, and that is a couple of pom-poms. And just for a little, something extra. So I pulled out the Ultimate, and I wanted to give you guys a tip, because you know how the Ultimate has these pegs, and normally we would use this
to make bows.
Good! Yes!
I knew that.
That's right, we would. We would totally make bows, but I want to show you that you can make pom-poms on this too. So, maybe, yeah, that's probably big enough. So I'm just going to tie this on.
Should I get super close, or?
Yeah. And I'm just going to, whoops. I'm basically just going to wrap it. Doesn't have to be super tight, but...
And you're just using yarn?
This is just yarn, just like pink yarn. You just use a color that's going to coordinate, and I'm just basically wrapping. And I think you guys know, because this is like an old school way to make pom-poms. Sometimes you would do it on a fork, but I just wanted to show you another thing that you could do with your Ultimate tool. And basically you can make your pom-poms different sizes just by putting your pegs in different, like widening your pegs. There's a bunch of different holes that you can put it in. So you want to wrap like a substantial amount of yarn around here.
See that?
Yeah, you want your pom-poms to be like puffy.
And someone wanted to know what kind of sewing machine you were using.
Oh, okay. Well, come around and I'll give a little tour while I'm wrapping this. So this is the Janome Mod 100 Q. That just means like it has a quilting table. But so it's totally computerized. The mod, the 100 means it has 100 stitches, which are here. And so it's got lots of buttonholes and you know, mostly you use like the straight stitch and the zigzag. But you can see with the decorative stitches, I used some of those today. But the great thing about, like, let's say upgrading to a machine like this is that it's still a fairly portable machine. It's not one of those big mamas that take up like your entire table. It's still like a reasonably sized machine. I think it's about, 15 pounds maybe. Don't quote me on that for sure. But it's not a super heavy big machine. And it's got the automatic scissors, which is really great. You don't have to snip. I mean, it still has the blade at the side. Has the needle down. You just press this button and the needle goes down rather than having to, I mean, you can still twirl it if you want. And then this little, it looks like a bullseye. What that does is if you're using one of those decorative stitches, it's a lock off. So basically what it'll do is, like, let's say we're going for this whole row of little snowflakes here, but then I get to the end and I'm like, oh no, stop. And then I just stop sewing. I might be halfway through one of those little snowballs. If you press this button, it will finish the next stitch, like finish the next image. So if you were doing the tulips or the stars, so that you got another full one in, and then it would automatically lock it off. So that's a really nice feature.
I'm going to come back around here so we can...
All right, so I just snipped the pom-pom. I've got lots of it on here. And then I'm just going to take a little length of yarn, and underneath my pegs, I'm going to tie this as tight as I possibly can without breaking the yarn.
Oh.
Can you see with my big fingers in the way? I'm just tying this as tight as I possibly can without breaking the yarn. Okay? And then I'm going to slip it off. And it looks like a little bow, which you could totally use a little yarn bow. That's so cute. But what I'm going to do here with my fabric scissors, or whatever scissors, I'm going to use fabric because it's going to be easier. I'm going to cut all of those loops. Ha! And it just springs to life. Pom-pom.
Oh.
Mike has to teach grade 4 art this year, so here you go, Mike.
Maybe we'll make pom-poms.
Maybe they'll like that.
I have to check the curriculum and see how it fits in.
I know. And then just trim some of your ends. And if you have any pieces that are a little longer, then just give it like a little haircut. Whew! Yarn fibers. Make sure you got them all. And there you go. And you can tie this right to your loop here.
Does the automatic scissors on the sewing machine ever need sharpening?
Not that I've ever seen. maybe if you were to bring your machine in for maintenance, that would be something they would do, but it's only cutting tiny threads, so I think the blade's pretty safe.
People are liking the pom-poms.
Yeah, it's cute, right? And you could do another one that dangles down or whatever. I did 2 on this one.
Oops.
But it's just a little extra touch that you can, in like 5 minutes, really add something to your, you know what I mean? And use up some of that extra yarn. Cute, right?
Very.
Well, I hope this has inspired you to sew up a Christmas stocking, and even if it's not a stocking, to at least bust out that sewing machine that's got to be collecting dust somewhere. Maybe you used to do it when you were a kid, or maybe, but there's so many cute free patterns that you can download and post pictures of, and if you're a crafty type, I know you'll like doing this too. So thank you so much for watching. Please share it if you can. That's the biggest compliment you can give me. And I'm going to try to convince my sister to help me Friday night. And maybe we'll do a bit of paper crafting Friday night. Mike?
Someone's asking about the pattern.
Oh, this pattern?
I would imagine so.
Okay, so I used a kit from HSN that had the stockings on a big panel. Let me show it to you before I go. Like this. It came like that. However, if you wanted to make this yourself, you could watch along this video on a big piece of paper or 2. Just draw a big sock, okay? Like just draw. These aren't hard to draw. Or you take a sock and outline it. It doesn't really matter the shape. And then you could cut your own pattern and follow along on these instructions. I will post on this page the online instructions for this kit if you want to follow along. But you know, you'll be able to do it by following along on this video, and these come up really, really easy. So thank you so much for watching. You can find that one on hsn.com. I think they're on sale, so yeah, head on over there.
It comes with everything you need, right?
Comes with everything. It comes with the liner fabric, the batting for the inside, and of course, it comes with enough to make 2 stockings. So it comes with this twice over, and enough liner fabric to make 2 and enough batting to make 2. And you'll have lots and lots of fabric left over for other little, you know, fun projects. All right, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you hopefully later this week. Bye.